if you're new on the channel, you probably know this already, but I really like to play the game. And while gaming is fun and I love to do it, I've been doing it for a long time now, gaming definitely has its pros and cons. And being a Christian and playing video games, there's definitely a lot to be aware of. And I think I just want to share that with you all, have a conversation about what gaming as a Christian looks like and how it's affected me. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So why do I play games? Well, I mean, games in general are fun. I have a lot of fun with games. There's so many different variations of games out there. I love shooting games, I love fighting games, sports games, MMORPGs. Those are some of my favorites because you get to create your own person, you get to kind of be who you want to be, you get to have a form of control over the different areas that you're playing. So they kind of go hand in hand with a lot of the different interests I have. I love anime. Video games have amazing music and scores at times, and it really just allows you to kind of be in another world, because this one is, it can get kind of tough. It's getting tough. So games inherently are fun. They let you take a break from the stresses of life, whether that be work or school or whatever the case may be. So it gives you a lot of room in there to kind of do what you want to do. I love video games because they're competitive. Competitive games allow you to be the person that you can see yourself as, you know, if you're like in the NBA, or maybe you thought you would be like a wrestler, or maybe you thought you'd be the MLB, and it's like maybe you didn't, maybe you didn't make it, but video games let you do that. I know that I'm not like a black belt in any form of martial art, so I love fight games because I get to do that type of stuff, and there's a lot of cool stuff that happens with that as well. And I mean, let's be real, you don't know my height probably, but I'm not NBA high material, like none of it. So you won't catch me in the NBA, so I gotta be good on 2K. You know, if you want to play me on 2K, go ahead and hit me up. I got the new one. But video games are fun. They're fun. They're competitive. It allows you to kind of express yourself in a different way. I think games bring a lot of community. Games allow you to meet different people from all over the world. Of course, you have like people that you may know personally that play games with you, but it gives you an opportunity to be around different groups of people. You get to meet different people that played certain games, or you might have your own little small community within the game. So there's a lot of different ways that games allow us to connect with one another and do it in a way that isn't so platonic. We get to actually involve ourselves in something, whether it be a team game or going against each other. There really are a lot of different ways that you can really just meet people through games. Like, I legit actually met people in real life that I've played Xbox with, and that doesn't happen often. And I think more time has went by where it's been more acceptable, because back when I was like, I'd say 12, that would have not flew. Like, my mom would have, I don't even know what she would dare to me if I would have told her like,
hey, I'm gonna go meet up with Larry from Dakota. Like,
no, that's not happening. But I think with the way that social media allows us to connect with one another, it's a lot easier to actually meet people, and doing it in a manner where you're not having to like guess who that person is to a degree. Don't hear what I'm not saying. You want to be cautious, but it's just it happens more often, and I've been able to see and even be a part of gaming communities in that way. So it's really cool to be able to see that games can bring people together, and that's what I want to do with this channel. So if you like the idea, drop a like and put community in the comments so I can see that you got to this part, because now we're gonna have to talk about some of the things that go with gaming that aren't the best. And inherently, both of those things that I mentioned actually kind of go into the next part of this video. And I'll preface this with a scripture. So just for a disclaimer, if you have a Bible and you want to look at the same scripture as well, you can go ahead and do so. If you have a physical one or if you have one online, you can do that. And I read the NIV, so that's the translation that I have. But the scripture that I'm going to read is in Mark 9, and it is verse 43. And this is Jesus talking, and Jesus is describing things that cause people to stumble. And stumbling might be kind of a weird terminology for what I'm describing, but it'll make more sense once I read scripture. So, scripture reads, "If your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life maimed than with 2 hands to go into hell where the fire never goes out." And that's pretty intense. That's really intense. But when we think about stumbling, right? Stumbling is one of those terminologies that you typically consider with running or walking, a form of movement, where if you're walking down the street, right, and you trip over a rock, something like that, you may not fall, but you may stumble a bit. You may catch yourself before you fully fall and like hit your elbow or something like that. So stumbling is the precursor to falling. Stumbling allows us to see that this could actually hurt me if I go further with it. And there are some things in gaming that, just to be honest and straight up, really can cause people, and I've even had moments like that myself, that gaming can cause people to stumble. And I know I talked about fun and being competitive, and I think that's kind of one of the ones that I would start with, is that pride. I mean, you know, if you're playing the game and you're not winning, or you're dealing with I guess the opportunity to lose, you're like, I don't really know how I feel about that, and you might get prideful, you might get angry. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people rage on video games, controllers broken, cursing, turning the game off. I've seen even people turn their Wi-Fi off because games have made them so angry. And I get it, it's a part of the competitive nature of games, and realistically we don't like losing, but that can be a real struggle for someone who deals with anger. Or it could be something that is difficult for people to accept when they lose if they deal with pride. So while games are fun and competitive, it's something to be aware of and something to be careful about. Community is also another thing. I'm not gonna throw names out there, but it can be very toxic in gaming communities in general. I mean, I'm sure that people who actually were around during the Call of Duty days could attest to that, about how toxic gaming communities can be. Have they gotten better? By no means. But gaming communities can be very difficult to be a part of if there's just a lot of craziness going on, for lack of better terms. So gaming communities are something to be aware of. Being careful, really seeing and choosing what communities you want to be a part of, and even what people you want to play with. And now we start to get into some of the ones that really speak to the underlying parts of gaming. And if you're not careful, it can really catch you off guard and almost completely take over parts of your life. I know, because it's happened to me before. Distractions and overindulgence in video games, in other words, debauchery, is a very serious and dangerous thing when it comes to playing video games. Because on one hand, while games are a relief for us in stressful times, they're fun and they allow us to meet and connect with people, they can be real distractions in our lives. Gaming can take away time that we could be using for something more productive. Gaming can do things such as keeping you from actually seeing the real problems in your life. And I know that I can really speak to this in multiple ways, because I remember a time where I was really down and I was really upset with the way that life was going, and the only thing that I really was using to cope with that is games. And at the time it felt nice. There was a lot of time that I just kind of didn't really care about having, because I was so concerned with what I was dealing with, I didn't even want to think about it. And games were that relief for me. And that also leads into the overindulgence or the debauchery of video games, where, man, there were days where I stayed up till 7, 8, 12 a.m. the next day playing video games. And while it felt fun and while it felt like it was something that I wanted to do, you can physically and mentally feel the fatigue, feel the dragging of your mind when that happens. And of course you just are tired, and that's just not okay in any regard. And I've definitely even fell victim to that in general after learning more about God, and it was quickly started to dawn on me that I could not live that lifestyle anymore. So overindulging and being distracted by video games is a very real thing, and it's definitely something to look more into if that's something that you feel you struggle with. And lastly is actually in the scripture causing you to stumble. If video games are fun, right? If video games are a form of entertainment, if video games allow you to connect with friends and people that you love, do it. You know, like, there's no issue inherently with playing video games. But if a video game causes you to struggle in your life, whether it be financially or physically, and especially spiritually, then it may be time to take a second look at the games that you're playing. It may take you to look into the people that you're around, and in some cases you may just have to step away from games altogether. Games, while they do have a form of innocence to them, there is a level of darkness that comes with video games. When you think about the different games that are out, there's a lot of games with shooting or blood and gore. There's games where there's a lot of suggestive themes with X amount of different areas, and even at times the music is like, ugh. So it can be very difficult to play video games in that manner if it makes you feel uncomfortable, if it hurts you in any way, and like I said, especially spiritually, if you feel like you have a relationship with God and you want to do better in it, or you want to learn how to have one, and games hinder that in some aspect, it may be time to have a fasting from games. It may be you praying and asking God for you to have other opportunities that remove you from games. And I know that for me, gaming was one of those things that I knew I had to cut back on, and that's why I really want to have this channel be something that I can use to bring community, but to also help myself and others see that there's ways that God really wants us to do things. And if we're not committing it to Him, and we're not using what we have to elevate Him and His kingdom and His goals, then it will be very difficult for us to be in the spots that we are at. And gaming is one of those big areas for myself as well, where I really have to look, and we really have to look and see if gaming is creating that space or not. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. Hope that was informative. Hope that you all had a good opportunity to just kind of look and see the different pros and cons that come with gaming. And I really like doing videos like this, so if you enjoy this style of video, go ahead and drop a like down and leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have any experiences with games in this way, and let's have a conversation about it. But with that, thanks for being here with me, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye.